Have you ever heard of the name Telluric current? What would you do if you knew that there was a giant electric circuit underneath the Earth? You're walking across a barren field at dusk. The grass beneath your boots is dry, brittle, but beneath that, something stirs. Not with sound, not with motion, but with pulse. There is an electric thread moving silently underfoot. It doesn't light up. It doesn't hum. But it's there, tugging at the edge of instruments, occasionally flickering through compasses, seeping into telegraph lines in ways no one expected. You're not walking on ground. You're walking on a world submerged underground, a layered, breathing network of minerals, pressure, and charge. Think of the Earth as an organism, its crust as skin, its mantle as muscle, and this current, this telluric current, as its nervous system. It moves without wires. It feeds on magnetic fields from faraway stars. And in moments of silence, it speaks to those who know how to listen. You don't have to go deep, just below your garden, just under the floorboards. You're always inches from it. Long before the word electricity meant anything to humanity, the ancients noticed strange things. Dashima, in the high plains of central Anatolia, where the wind carves stories into stone, they built a temple, not because the soil was fertile or because the water was close, but because the land buzzed. The elders said they felt heat from the stone. Their fires burned slower. Birds migrated around it. When it rained, they claimed to hear voices. They were wrong. Of course, it wasn't voices. It was the current. This wasn't unique. In the Nile Valley, certain pyramids sit precisely along fault lines, now known to produce higher concentrations of telluric activity. Coincidence? Or did they feel it? Could they sense that the Earth spoke more clearly here, as if the veil were thinner? You may dismiss this as mystical nonsense. That's okay. But ask yourself, why did sacred sites always form patterns across continents? Why do Stonehenge, the Great Pyramid, the Nazca Lines, and ancient Himalayan monasteries align on invisible threads that defy reason? Because these were not mere buildings, they were receptors. Now picture the Earth not as rock, but as a living operating system, layered in geological memory, responding to solar input like software to code. The magnetic field, that's the firewall, the crust, the hardware, and telluric current, the active background process, running silently, adjusting variables, sending out ping-like signals to minerals, plants, and perhaps even you. You felt it before. In places where silence feels heavier, where birds won't sing, where your skin rises without wind. When the solar wind strikes Earth's magnetosphere, it's not just the aurora borealis that flares to life. It sends a charge into the ground. The telluric network responds, quick, invisible, carrying currents hundreds of kilometers across mountain ranges, lakes, deserts. To the untrained eye, it's nothing. To a sensitive soul, it's a thrum in the bones. The first human to try to listen properly was not a mystic, but a soldier. In the late 1700s, an Italian named Luigi Galvani touched a dead frog's leg with a metal probe. The muscle twitched at first. He thought it was the tool. Then the table. But it wasn't until weeks later that he realized it was the ground itself. A faint electric current had passed from Earth. Through his hand, into the metal, and sparked the nerve. He called it animal electricity. He was both wrong and right. Fast forward to the steam age. Iron rails span nations. Telegraph lines connect cities. Then something strange happens. Signals start to arrive before they're sent. Messages get duplicated. Some wires hum for hours, even when disconnected from power. Engineers check the lines, the insulators, the batteries. Everything looks normal. Until one night, during a solar storm, dozens of telegraph offices report electric shocks shooting up from the floor. Operators scream, desks catch fire. The telluric current had surged, unauthorized, unchecked, undeniable. The Earth had hijacked the line. It would happen again in 1859, what we now call the Carrington event. Telegraph wires melted. Auroras lit up Rome and Havana, and beneath the soil, the current moved like blood in a fevered body. Some said the sun was angry. Others said it was the end times. Only a few asked, quietly, what else might be riding on these pulses? Let's go deeper. Imagine a layer beneath bedrock, where water and magma meet. Here, the telluric current strengthens. Iron-rich minerals amplify it. Entire rivers of electricity flow sideways through the crust. This is not fantasy. We have mapped it now. Faint outlines of electric pathways crawling beneath the Rockies, the Himalayas, the Andes. They resemble veins, and where they intersect, earthquakes, volcanoes, faults. What you think of as chaotic might actually be organized release, like a pressure valve discharging not just force, but electricity. Imagine an Earth that doesn't just erupt randomly. Imagine it chooses where to break when the voltage gets too high. Tartame. But what if this current does more than shape the crust? In the Amazon, locals speak of places where the soil feels alive, where plants grow faster, where compasses spin. In some of these places, geologists found high concentrations of telluric current. The roots were longer, the microbial life richer, as if the land itself were buzzing life upward. Now imagine a mushroom, not the fruiting body, but the massive, miles-wide mycelial networks beneath. Mycelium transmits electric-like pulses through its strands. Some scientists believe fungi talk to each other this way. What if they are not alone? What if mycelium connects not just trees, but the Earth's internal current to the living world? A literal bridge between rock and life. You might ask, how could we ever prove that? But maybe proof is not the point. Maybe you're meant to feel it, to walk a trail and sense that under the leaves and humus and stone, something stirs, something ancient, something electric, something that has always been here. Chai. You are not standing on solid ground. You are standing on an ancient network that has always been live, always moving. It doesn't care for cities or governments or Wi-Fi. It predates them all. It may outlast them all. And if you close your eyes and lie down flat against the earth, you just might feel it moving beneath you. That isn't imagination, that's the current. You are in a dark forest. The canopy above blocks out most of the moonlight, and the only sounds are the wind weaving through the branches and something deeper beneath the soil, beneath the roots. You feel it in your feet, not as movement, but as rhythm, pulse, a low vibration that has no sound, yet speaks directly to your bones. This is not just a forest. This is part of a global, unseen mind. You stand in the middle of an ancient communication system, a biological and electric fusion, buried but alive. And in this part of the journey, you learn that the telluric current doesn't just power landscapes, it touches thought. Imagine, just for a moment, that the earth is thinking, and that it's thinking through you. It starts with the animals. Have you ever watched a bird migrate with perfect precision? Or a turtle return to the exact patch of sand where it was born, years earlier, thousands of miles away? Or seen whales breach in symmetrical patterns beneath the aurora, as if dancing to a signal you can't hear? You probably chalked it up to instinct. But what if instinct is just the biological response to magnetic whispers? This current, silent, flowing through rock and salt water, isn't just noise, it's information. When solar winds disrupt Earth's magnetosphere, the telluric current changes. These shifts ripple through the crust, through ocean floors, through animal tissues, and in certain creatures, birds, bees, turtles, fish, it activates something ancient. Magnetoreception. It's not magic. It's chemistry. Inside the eyes and beaks and brains of these creatures lie proteins like cryptochromes, sensitive to electromagnetic fields. When the Earth's telluric current pulses stronger, these proteins literally glow or alter chemical reactions, allowing the animals to see or sense direction. A GPS powered by the planet itself. You've seen birds form spirals in the sky. Now you know why. You've seen schools of fish shift in unison. Now you understand. They are not guessing. They are listening. And now, something uncomfortable. So are you? The human body, like the planet, is an electric machine. Your heart beats because of electrical pulses. Your brain thinks in waves of voltage and ion exchange. Your cells talk using charges. You are, in essence, a conductor, not unlike the Earth. In laboratory experiments, humans placed in controlled environments, devoid of natural electromagnetic fields, start to hallucinate. Their circadian rhythms break down. Mood, cognition, even memory suffer. Why? Because your body expects the Earth's rhythm. You're not separate from the telluric current. You are designed to function inside it. In the Mars 80s, astronauts began suffering from disorientation and insomnia after long stays in orbit. NASA discovered that without the Earth's natural electromagnetic fields, the body struggled to regulate basic functions. So they installed artificial Schumann resonance generators on spacecraft, devices that mimic the frequency of telluric-linked electromagnetic background. Translation: astronauts needed to fake the Earth's hum to stay sane. And if that hum stops here on Earth, would we know? Or would we simply feel lost? Now consider this. The telluric current changes depending on location, geology, and solar activity. That means the Earth's mood is not constant. Some places, sometimes, are charged differently. And you? You might be more sensitive than you think. There are people who experience headaches before earthquakes. There are forests where people feel euphoric or terrified without reason. There are caves where silence becomes unbearable, not because of sound, but because of pressure in the mind. Let's step into one such place, a forest in Poland, known locally as the Crooked Woods. The trees there curve in identical arcs near the base, as if twisted by unseen hands. No scientific explanation satisfies. Gravity, wind, damage, all fail to account for the perfect symmetry. But beneath the roots of those warped pines lies a telluric anomaly, a zone where the Earth's current flows in an unnatural pattern. Sensitive equipment shows strange, unaccountable variations in electrical charge and geomagnetic fluctuation. The trees bent not because of wind, they bent because of the planet's signal. Now imagine what that signal does to the birds, the insects, the humans who sleep nearby. There's a town in Siberia where every resident reports the same dream, a voice rising from below, whispering a single name. Scientists investigated. They found nothing on the surface, but deeper down, their instruments detected abnormal telluric activity, a fault line pulsing unusually, despite no tectonic movement. Coincidence? Mass hysteria? Or something stranger? But let's not get lost in mystery just yet. Let's focus on the known. Modern research shows that telluric currents affect plant growth. Seedlings exposed to certain electromagnetic patterns root faster, sprout stronger. Root cells orient themselves toward charge sources, like water towards gravity. This raises a question. If roots can listen, and fungi can transmit signals, and telluric current can guide growth, then is the forest floor a data network? And are we just now realizing that we've been walking on Earth's brain? Let's stretch the metaphor. You remember the Matrix, how humans lived inside a simulation run by machines? Now flip it. What if the Earth is the machine, and we're inside its operating system? What if telluric current is not just electricity, but code? Consider this. It never stops running. It adjusts itself based on solar input, magnetic shift, internal pressure. It affects biological processes, influences behavior, shapes geography. It responds to energy spikes, stores memory in minerals, creates feedback loops. That is not a passive process. That is computation. Some scientists are exploring this idea, not directly, but philosophically. The Gaia hypothesis, for instance, proposes that Earth is a self-regulating organism. But if you view Earth as a computer, telluric current becomes its neural network. Fault lines are synapses. Storms are stimulus. Volcanoes are overclocked CPUs venting heat. And maybe, just maybe, we're the sensory organs. Not the center, not the purpose. Just eyes and ears and fingertips, extensions of a greater, deeper intelligence. Is this madness, or is it humility? But before you drift too far into theory, let's return to the human story. In the highlands of Peru, there are villages where people bury quartz stones wrapped in copper wire beneath their homes. They don't know why. It's just tradition. When asked, the elders say, it keeps the ground balanced. Scientists recently measured higher than normal electric conductance in these buried circuits. A feedback loop forms between the minerals and the telluric current. Some researchers believe this may reduce microseismic vibration, stabilizing the ground. They don't realize it. But these villagers are running passive earthware, non-digital technology rooted in the body of the planet. What does this mean for us? It means that there is knowledge buried not only under stone, but under skin, that the oldest tools for survival may lie not in machines, but in our ability to hear the current, migrating without satellites, healing without wires, sleeping with the earth instead of under it. You're not simply alive on this planet. You are connected bioelectrically, magnetically, electrically to a living, pulsing mind. And when you close your eyes tonight, remember this. The thoughts inside your head may not all belong to you. Some of them might be borrowed from the soil. You are now in the archives of the unrecorded, the places below museums, deeper than time capsules, deeper still than fossilized bones of creatures with too many teeth and not enough days to survive. This part of you, the part now descending into tunnels of thought and current, doesn't blink anymore. There is no use for eyelids in a world made of signal, vibration, and electric whispers. Your hands do not touch earth anymore. They tap and sweep across interface. The stone has long been replaced with silicon. But make no mistake, the foundation of every spark you see still roots in telluric currents. You start with the myth of resonance, an ancient city, long since reduced to silt, believed that the hum beneath the soil was not an earthquake, but a conversation. Their priests trained for decades to hear it. Lay still on copper plates, buried in the dirt. Wait for the whisper. Translate the code. Speak it into fire. No records remain. But in the underground galleries of certain Tibetan monasteries, diagrams etched in crystal resemble electric schematics far beyond their age. Now listen. The earth hums beneath skyscrapers, beneath roads, beneath your kitchen tiles. Telluric currents are not a theory. They are measurable, real, electrical currents that flow silently through soil, water, and rock, driven by geomagnetic pulses from the sun and the rotation of the Earth's molten iron core. You once stood on a plain in central Kazakhstan and felt a tingle in your feet before your hands brushed a steel fence and sparked. You blamed it on static, but it wasn't. You were walking on a river of invisible current. The earth is a machine, but not the kind built of parts, the kind that learns, the kind that absorbs, the kind that reroutes electricity, shifts charge, and pulses back through your bones as intuition. You have made myths of it. You have made ghosts. Some people feel the electricity before a storm and call it dread. Others call it prophecy. What if both are true? Now, take this further. What if your emotions, too, are part of the grid? Somewhere beneath the Gobi Desert, there's a scar in the planet's skin, an exposed vein of pyrite and quartz where geomagnetic anomalies have broken every compass for 100 miles. Ancient tribes refused to camp there. In the 1980s, Soviet geologists went missing trying to map it. The locals say the ground sings there, but only if you're mourning. You're told this and laugh until you visit, and you feel the hum, low and slow, sync with your breath like a lullaby played on wires. Have you ever cried without knowing why? They say the earth records everything. That's not poetry. That's the physics of ferroelectric minerals. Certain crystals, when charged by telluric currents, can encode patterns like memory. If those patterns can be decoded, what are they remembering? Civilizations, earthquakes, songs, or your footsteps? Step now into theory. Or maybe it's reality. Hard to say where one ends and the other begins. In 1943, during the height of global war, a lab in Basel, Switzerland, recorded strange anomalies in underground copper wires. They thought it was sabotage, until the pattern repeated precisely every 27 days. They later discovered it matched the solar rotation. Telluric currents were mirroring sunspots. The war was irrelevant. The sun, earth, and current were conversing. You were merely an interference, and in that interference, you built tools like sensors that could detect underground oil, or enemy submarines, or tectonic stress building up along fault lines. You thought you were using science, but were you listening instead? Pause, breathe. Look out your window, city lights, maybe a distant thundercloud. All of it floating on a silent ocean of current beneath your feet. Every transformer hum, every spark from a frayed wire, every sudden moment of clarity you couldn't explain. It's part of the system. Some call this system the matrix. You see the parallel now, a reality underneath your reality, but instead of code, it's minerals. Instead of AI, it's the pulse of the planet. And instead of agents, it's myths, it's storms, it's feelings. Now you must ask, can humans use this current? The answer is yes and no. Yes, because we already do. Geophysical exploration, earthquake prediction, ground conductivity mapping. But that's just data. The deeper answer is stranger. In a lab in Finland, researchers stimulated a specific patch of ground laced with magnetite, mimicking the pulse of telluric movement. Across the world, several participants, blind to the experiment, reported vivid dreams, all with similar imagery: tunnels, wires, and a low, sorrowful hum. Dreams connected through dirt and current. How do you test that? You don't. You just keep digging. Now, the caution. You ask if we can destroy telluric current. Maybe. But not like breaking a machine. It's more like causing brain damage in something alive. Because if the Earth is an operating system, then this current is its neural network, its synaptic flash, polluted with metal and plastic and too much electromagnetic interference, and something will change. Has already changed. You've noticed, haven't you? Dreams more erratic, moods more volatile, GPS more unreliable, animals confused, whales beaching, birds veering off migration. You think it's climate. It's also charge. And if enough is disrupted, something ancient will wake. An echo of balance, buried deep, a system reset. Perhaps that's why certain temples were built where the current flows strongest. Not for worship, for anchoring. And maybe your myths of dragons under the mountains weren't metaphors. Maybe they were the currents themselves, writhing, sleeping, shaping. You have more control than you think, or maybe you have none at all. Either way, the hum continues, quiet as a memory, strong as destiny, and you are walking upon it. Have you ever walked barefoot on damp earth after a storm? The kind of storm that leaves the world hushed, glistening, as if something ancient has been rinsed clean and awakened. You might not have noticed it, but something was pulsing just beneath your toes. Not warmth, not cold, something else. A silent rhythm, a current, as if the earth itself was remembering. Now, you stand at the edge of a future that might never happen. You don't know it yet, but this part of the story belongs to you more than the rest. You are no longer just listening to the pulse of telluric current. You are touching it, shaping it, becoming it. Somewhere in the northern plains, a quiet village begins to light its houses with no wires at all. A network of copper roots and iron fingers coils below, tuned like a harp to the frequency of the earth. At night, they hum, not loudly, but enough to keep the wolves away. Not electricity, not exactly, just the ground remembering how to give. The engineers here don't wear lab coats, they wear gloves made of woven basalt. They don't build power plants, they dig listening pits. They don't measure in volts, they measure in dreams. Because this isn't energy the way you knew it. It's resonance. It's tapping into the ancient whisper of the telluric flow and asking permission before taking. This is the first rule of the new age. The earth is not a battery. It is a being. If you don't ask nicely, it will not share. And not everyone asks nicely. You learn that not all human attempts to use the telluric currents were benign. A few decades back, there were experiments in northern Russia. Deep shafts drilled into the permafrost, filled with coils and silver rotors. The idea was to tune the earth like an organ pipe, force resonance, and draw out massive power. It worked, briefly. One winter night, a nearby lake vanished. Not dried up, just gone. As if the water had been pulled straight down into the earth's memory. The shaft collapsed. Birds refused to fly over the area. Locals spoke of shadows moving underground. The project was quietly buried, both literally and in the archives. They learned. Too late. The second rule of the new age: if you push too hard, the earth forgets you, but others remember to whisper. In certain Himalayan monasteries, monks have been practicing earthing meditations for centuries. They walk in deliberate patterns through the rock gardens, iron filings in their robes. To an outsider, it looks like devotion, but it's a map, a grounding ritual. They say the telluric current sings louder in places where the stars are closest. And if you walk just right, if your heart is quiet enough, you can tune your body to the earth's own language. One initiate, a woman named Tashi, learned to control street lights as she passed. Not by magic, by resonance. By becoming a soft magnet of flesh and breath, calibrated to a frequency that most humans forgot. Tashi went on to design the first human-to-earth interface. Not a machine, but a movement. A kind of dance that recharged devices and dreams alike. Her followers call it the slow circuit. They say the trick is not speed. The trick is surrender. What can humans do with telluric current? Not everything, but enough. We can power cities not from dams or oil, but from rhythm. We can grow plants that drink from magnetic fields. We can make music that only the soil understands. We can rebuild systems not on extraction, but on exchange. Imagine roads that heal themselves when the current flows just right. Shoes that guide you away from danger by the tug in your soles. Books whose ink glows when the soil is near. Imagine a house that breathes, sinking to the pulse of the land like a sleeping animal. And imagine this: entire cities where silence is part of the infrastructure. Because the more you listen, the more power the earth is willing to share. But here's the hardest part, the third rule of the new age. If you try to own it, it disappears. You're not the master of the current. You are its guest. There are stories from the Amazon about fire roots that spark when disturbed. Tribes speak of certain tree clusters that hum during lightning storms. In ancient Korea, geomancers called Pungsujiri would choose village sites based on where the earth's breath felt balanced. In Africa, copper artifacts were buried not for ritual, but for grounding. And in modern Tokyo, an entire building is designed to tune itself to earth resonance, so its lights dim and pulse according to deep earth fluctuations. You see, the earth has always been trying to tell you something. It's just that now, you're finally learning how to listen. Let's end with a final scene. You're standing at the top of an obsidian tower. Only it isn't a tower. It's a sculpture. A needle of mineral listening. Beneath it, spiraling into the soil, are coiled copper roots. And below that, far below, the telluric current flows like breath. You remove your shoes, step barefoot onto the stone. You close your eyes. A single note hums through your body. Not painful, not loud, familiar. Like a lullaby you forgot you knew. You are plugged into something old, something kind, something dangerous if mishandled, but endlessly generous if met with care. You open your mouth, not to speak, but to listen. Because this isn't just electricity, it's memory, and it remembers you. And so, the current continues beneath the cities, beneath the forests, beneath the oceans and deserts and frozen wastes. It flows. You now know its names: telluric, geoelectric, Earth's breath. You now know its moods: playful, patient, powerful. You now know its myths: lightning serpents, fire roots, the whispers of monks, and the disappearances of lakes. But more than that, you've learned the rhythm, not just as a curiosity, not as a weapon, not as a secret to be stolen, but as a tool of wonder, a reminder that this planet is not dead rock, not just a platform for your ambitions, but a living system, one that pulses with memory, intelligence, and warning. What will you do with it now? Will you build machines that hum in harmony with soil? Will you dig not to conquer, but to hear? Will you walk barefoot just to feel? You don't need to answer now. Let the earth keep whispering. And maybe, one night, when the wind is still and the stars are humming, you'll feel that pulse again beneath your feet. You'll smile and you'll remember